All right, so we're going to go through Docusign. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with my screen on command. So it's always important that you start in command whenever you are working with a new opportunity. You want to create the opportunity first. So the first thing you want to look at, I'll just run through this briefly. You want to just check that your Docusign is connected to your command. So at the top right, you can go to settings, and then in your applications, you can just check and make sure that Docusign is connected. So as you can see here, I have my Docusign connected to my command. So if this step hasn't been done yet, then you're not going to be able to follow along fully in this class, which is fine. You can just sit back and listen, or feel free to pop off, and the instructions for how to connect your Docusign account to your command is in the Docusign study guide that you should all have, which I'll reference at the end of this class as well. But if you don't have that for some reason, please reach out to me and I can get it to you. So from there, we're going to go to opportunities. So you always start your opportunity before you start your room in Docusign. So a room in Docusign is a loop in .loop. So those two words, you can just kind of think of as the same thing in your head. So I'm in opportunities. I'm going to create an opportunity here on the right side. And I'm going to fill in all of the asterisks, right, the required. I'll do a listing today. I've done buyers for the last couple classes, so I'll do a listing. The client, so me and my husband are super into Ozark right now. So my test client is Wendy Bird. So you have to have at least one person in your contacts. Welcome to some people. We've had some late additions. All I've covered so far is just we're starting our opportunity in command. So you have to have your client put into your contacts before you can start your opportunity. And as robust as your client or your contact is in command is how much information will be pulled over to Docusign. So the more information you put in there, like phone number, email, stuff like that, the more you'll be able to pull over. In the co-seller, it's not required, but if you had like their spouse or roommate already in your contacts, you could add them to co-seller here, and it'll pull their information as well into Docusign. So the name, right? So if this was a listing, I could actually name it with the property. So like 123 Street Drive, right? And I'm just gonna, for Joanne's case, put test on there so she knows this is fake. And then the only thing left is just the commission rate. So we'll put 3%, and we can always change that later. So we'll create. Also, like I said earlier in the class, I feel like we have a small enough group that if you have questions, you could just unmute yourself and ask. But there's also the chat function at the bottom of your screen if you're more comfortable typing your questions. But I'm totally fine with you guys piping in. So your details section of your opportunity. So if you select from listings up here at the top, I know that that will actually pull into your Docusign automatically. So this isn't a real listing, so I'm not going to be able to choose one. But just for your own reference, if you do use this button, it will pull that information automatically into Docusign, which is nice. And then all of these pencil icons would allow you to edit here. So as Docusign and command start to communicate more efficiently with each other, the more things you put into the details section of your opportunity will get pulled over to the details section of your Docusign room, which will help in like auto-populating your forms that you have. So keep that in mind. Right now, not everything is going to sync up, but I have heard from people in the region that this is getting more and more streamlined, like every time they update command in Docusign. So that's nice. So I'm going to go over to the document section in my opportunity, and just going to clarify super quickly about the fact that there is a document section in both command and Docusign, which may get a little confusing. So just really quickly, Docusign, the document section in Docusign is how you communicate with your clients and how you receive signatures on documents. The document section of Command is how you communicate with your Market Center for compliance and for commissions to get paid. So those are two different things. So the Market Center will not see your documents in Docusign. We see your documents in Command. So that's important to note that if it's something that the Market Center needs to know about, it needs to be put into Command, which is very easy to do, and we will show you that. So you're here in your documents, right? We still have not created a Docusign room, and we will do so now. So at the top here, it's going to say Start Transaction when you begin your opportunity. You can click that, and right now, Joanne still has Docusign and .loop connected, so it's giving her the choice. Obviously, for this class, we're going to use Docusign. Now, I do want to make a note for everybody that this is important, that it will only allow you to, it being Command. Command will only allow you to make this decision one time per opportunity. So you have to really think, you know, am I wanting to use Docusign or am I wanting to use .loop? So while we're still in this kind of gray area, just take a pause before you start. Once you choose one, you can't go back. And the only way to redo it is to lose the opportunity and start over. So it's important. So I'm going to choose Docusign, obviously. And it's going to automatically pop up a new window as long as my pop-up blocker is not enabled. And it's going to open straight into Docusign. Now, I've already been into Docusign a couple times today, so it's not asking me to log in. I have found that the first time every day it asks you to log in. So just make sure you have access to your password or have it saved, because it will ask you once a day. So it opens to the document section. We're going to pop over to the left one to go to details first, just so I can show you guys a couple of things. So you'll notice that the name of the room is exactly the name of the opportunity. So that does sync up. Over here on the right-hand side, so this is a listing. So my seller one, is Wendy. So it's pulled that from my contact in Command. If I, up on the top right, click Edit, then everything becomes fillable. So I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to see seller 2. I'm going to go ahead and add in her husband, Marty Bird. And I'm using my personal email here so that I can actually see what things look like when they're sent, which can be nice. And then as I scroll down, I see listing agent gets auto-populated from my command, Joanne's command, because I'm not an agent. And there's a spot for listing agent 2 if you wanted to add someone else to your room. And then now we get to the buyer information. So it's in this order all the time. So when you have a buying opportunity, you're gonna have to scroll down to get to your buyer. So it just always goes seller, listing agent, buyer, and then you'll have the buyer agent. And so, you know, you could put this information in once you knew it. And then as you scroll down, then you get to their buyer's agent. Okay, so I'm gonna press save here at the bottom. And as I scroll up, so this details page is where anything that can be auto-populated in the forms is going to come from. So you want to keep this as up-to-date as possible, especially with things that you know you're going to need to save you time. So for example, the address, as you scroll down, you know, you have the closing date, the contract date. So that type of stuff that you would know you're going to have to enter into forms. If you fill it into the details section, it'll auto-populate later. So that's helpful. So that's the details section. Now we're going to go over to documents. So we're in the documents portion of Docusign. So this is how I communicate with my clients to get signatures. So the add button on the right-hand side. This is how you would add documents. we're going to focus on two of these options today. We're going to focus on the computer option, which is where I would just have a PDF saved on my computer, and the Docusign forms. Docusign forms are the ones that have been made into templates that are fillable, so they're interactive. So those are two very different things, right? So we will start with the Docusign forms. So I'm going to click that. I have been in Docusign quite a bit, so I'm taken directly to this screen here. There is a chance that the first time that you're in Docusign, it may ask you for your NERDS number. You can go ahead and skip that step. It'll give you the option to skip it, and you can skip it. It may also ask you to choose your forms provider, which I can show you a screenshot of what that would look like. Pull that up. Okay, so you should be seeing this screenshot now. There's a chance that you get to this screen when you open up Docusign forms. I know that I saw it the first time I've used Docusign. And so if you have this screen, you can go ahead and click this continue to company forms without validation. You can go ahead and click that, and it should take you directly to the step that I'm on right now. If you ever have questions or someone on your team has questions about that, they can always call me and I can walk them through it. So I'm back to just the Docusign forms. So this is where you want to be to add the interactive forms. So when you have the option first here, the Docusign forms library. So when you're in the library and you go to select library, they're separated by the type of form, like Columbus Realtors, Keller Williams Pacific, the Ohio Association of Realtors. So you could pull things from there, but what we went ahead and did as a market center is if you switch from library at the top to group, then you can go down and we have them split into the buyer packet and the listing packet. So that's kind of what you've been used to in Dotloop. So I'll go ahead and click listing packet because this is a listing. And then the forms are all here, right? So you can press select all, or you could just pick and choose. That would be up to you. So I'm going to just do one for the sake of time, and I'll choose the team disclosure. And then I can press add at the bottom. Now at this point, we're still waiting on Docusign to fully format a couple more forms, and those will be done for us by the 15th. But we're still waiting on just a couple more to be fully formatted. And so if you're ever in there and you notice that something's missing, or you notice that you're working with a form and something is just not formatted correctly, please either let myself or Joanne Rasmussen know, and we can work on getting that fixed for you guys. Okay, so it's been added, the document, the team disclosure. So you'll notice this little icon with the blue form. That's just letting me know visually that this specific document is something that is fillable, and it's an interactive form. And this blue icon will change to a green check mark whenever it's been signed by the people it needs to be signed by. So I can edit this form by clicking on it. And then I can click into the text box and I can start typing. I can press tab to move to the next one. Making this up, we're not actually a real estate team. With the radio buttons, right? So I am a listing, so I'm the seller side. So just something to note. So the radio buttons, once you click one, you can switch it. Like I can switch to buyer, but I can't unclick it. You'll notice that I'm clicking it and nothing's happening. So that's important because in some forms, right, this one I have to choose seller or buyer to make the form valid, but there are some times where you don't have to choose either. And so that's just something to make a note of to your clients and to yourself as you're working, that you can't uncheck it. So something to note. You know, and then I can add some more leadership members here. Now I want to make sure that I save this because I've actually edited this document now. So I want to make sure I've saved it. So there's a save and close button here. Okay. And then now I want to send this off to get signatures from my clients. So I can hover over the document and click this circle icon at the top left. And then that pulled up all of these options here. The one that I want is the pen icon, which is the Docusign icon. So that I would click that, and it's going to create what's called an envelope. So an envelope is like the next kind of vocabulary word that you would have to learn with Docusign. So you can think of it as like an actual physical envelope. So I took my team disclosure, I wrote on it, right? And now in order to send it to my clients, I have to stuff it in an envelope and then send that envelope to them, right? So just like physical mail. So the envelope screen, you can do so much with it, right? So the envelope name is always given to you. It's pre-filled with the phrase, please DocuSign, every time. So depending on your own personal preference, you may want to change that. You know, maybe I know this is the team disclosure, so maybe I want to call it that because that way when I see all my envelopes together, I know which is which without having to click on them. Totally up to you. Here's my document here. If I was sending multiple documents at once, which I can totally do, I can also reorder them so that my client sees them in the specific order that I want them to. To do that, I would click and hold and then drag around. So you'll notice it's kind of floating. So imagine that there was other documents. I could put them in whichever order I wanted by dragging them. I don't know if you would ever want to do that, but it's something to think about that you have that option. When you're adding recipients to the envelope, so you have three options when you do this. You have pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email addresses. So whenever you're using a DocuSign form that's fillable, you always want to use pre-tagged roles, because what that means is the people who made the form, they tagged them with specific roles like seller 1, seller 2, buyer 1, buyer 2, listing agent, stuff like that. So you want, if you use pre-tagged roles, then everything's automatically assigned to where it needs to be. Okay, so you would use room participants if you were using a PDF, which we'll go over later. And then the email address option would just let you add somebody, anybody, to the list that you wanted. So let's go ahead and do pre-tagged roles. So the team disclosure would go for either buyers or sellers. So they have a generic title of authorized signer 1 and authorized signer 2. Right, this column's just telling me that this is the document that it's linked to. In the event that I had more than one document in the envelope, I would be able to tell which is which. And then the recipient, when I click down, these are the people that are in my room. So you'll see Wendy and Marty here. That's because I added them to the details section of my room. So that's why it's nice to put that second person in. That way their information is already in there for you. So I'll do Wendy as number 1, and I'll do Marty as number 2. Oh, I always gotta scroll down a little bit. Marty. And then add selected. If I had someone else that I wanted to sign the form, so maybe I click down and I use email addresses, that's going to let me just type in anyone I want and put in their email address. And that way it just sends to them. This could be useful for if you want to send a copy of this to your admin. If you want to send it to Lori, you need Lori's signature. This would be where you could add her. And then this column here with the numbers is a neat feature that Docusign has. So right now you'll see that Wendy, Marty, and we'll call this Lori just for our own clarity. So Wendy, Marty, and Lori are all a number 1, which means they're all going to receive this document at the same time, right? You could think of it as like the first wave, right? But say I didn't want Lori to see this document until Wendy and Marty have signed it, right? Because I know Lori's not going to sign it unless my sellers have signed it. So I can take this number 1 for Lori and I can turn it to a number 2. And that means that she's going to go out in the second wave, right? So the first wave will go out to Wendy and Marty. Once they've completed it, they've signed it, then it'll send that second wave to Lori, and only then. So that's kind of nice because you can establish almost like an entire workflow of a document. You know, I need this person, and then that person, and then I want it to go to my admin or something. You could totally make that as personal as you want it to be. But if you don't care, just leave them all as number 1s. They'll all get it at the same time. They can sign in any order, and that's just up to you. You can personalize a little bit further per person. So you'll notice here, this needs to sign. So if I just wanted Wendy to view it or to receive a copy, those are my options there. I can also, in the more, add a password or a private message. So the password could be neat for any of your clients that might be a little bit more apprehensive about digital documents. You could add a password to it, and then obviously you need to tell them that password, and that might make them feel just a little bit more comfortable if not just anyone with the link could open up this document. So it's another option. As I scroll down, this is the message. So this is the body of the email that's sent out to your client. The email subject is always please Docusign. So if you wanted to make it more specific, please Docusign this team disclosure. And you could put in any message that you want, like, you know, call me with any questions. And that's what's going to actually pop up in their email. So you could put whatever you wanted in there. Totally up to you. And so that's pretty much everything on this page. Obviously, like, this won't take you this long when you're actually working with this document or with Docusign. I'm like literally explaining everything that you could do. So that's just why it takes that amount of time. So I feel like we don't have an especially chatty group today, which could be good, but feel free to ask any questions that you have. I'm going to go up to the next button up at the top. I don't have to save it because I'm not leaving. I'm just going to finish this all. But if you wanted to come back later, you could press save and close, and then it'll be there in your envelopes as a draft. So that's an option. So I'll press next. Okay, so this is where you would actually personalize anything further. Now with this document, we typed in all of this information in the actual document section and we saved it. So that's why that's there. And then notice the signature and the date signed is already on there because this was a Docusign form, right? That type of stuff was already formatted. Now the yellow and the blue just tells you that those are two different people. So at the top left, you'll see Wendy here. She's got the little yellow dot. And if I click that down, Marty is in blue. And you'll see we had Lori on here, but she doesn't have anything to sign because I just added her there for an example. So that's how you can kind of see where everybody is assigned. And if you needed to add anything, we'll like really go over this part when we do the PDF. But if you needed to add something, you saw something was missing, this left-hand column or left-hand side is where you would edit, which I'll go over more later. Now, these date signs, they will, when your client opens up the Docusign on their own device, it'll automatically fill in the date and the time for you. I have found, this is just one tiny thing, I have found that not everybody's Docusign account has been set up in the Eastern time zone, which sounds super random. Some people, it's like set up as Central or even Pacific. So you'll want to make sure, or if you're noticing that people's forms are coming in signed in a different time zone, it's because your preferences are a little off. And I put the instructions for how to change that in the Docusign study guide. But I can also, it's from the main section of Docusign. So I can also show you guys that at the end of the class if there's time and if someone reminds me, because I'll probably forget. But that's just super random that I've noticed just from playing around. So at the top here, you can see a recipient preview. So if I click that, it's going to show me what my client is going to see. So if you wanted to just kind of double check in kind of like a read only kind of way, you could press that. And then up here, you can switch between all of the different people that you're sending this envelope to. And then you'll also notice at the top, they have these different options. So you can look at it, how it looks on a desktop, a tablet, and a phone, which is kind of neat. I don't know how often you'll do that, but kind of neat. So I'll X out of that. Oh, interesting. So I put Lori in here, and Docusign is trying to tell me like, whoa, dude, you're trying to send this to Lori and she doesn't even have anything to do with this. So it's basically double checking for me, which is super nice, but I will send without fields because this isn't real. But it's nice to know that it would catch that. Okay. Now it's sending to my people. It only ever takes this long when I use it in Kim's office. I don't know if her Wi-Fi is just not very strong back here, but. So you'll notice that now my envelope is in the envelopes section, and it has that yellow Docusign icon, which is just telling me that it's waiting. Whenever everybody has signed that document, it's going to change into a nice green check mark for me. So it's always very visual in Docusign. You can look at everything and just tell the status on everything that you can that you've sent out. If I click on this envelope, I can have some options. For example, it can break down exactly who needs to sign still. So that way you know exactly who you need to talk to. You can resend it. So, oh, I didn't get it, like spam folders, things like that. You can resend here without having to start completely over. You can also correct it if you've made a mistake, and then send that again. So those are your options here, and I'll press X at the top. So that's how you send an interactive form. So I'm going to now show you about the PDFs. So I'm going to go back over to the document section. And there's my team disclosure. I'm going to add a PDF now and show you guys how to do that. So I'll add from computer. And I downloaded today an agency disclosure. Now, the agency disclosure, to be clear, is already loaded as a Docusign form, but I just wanted an example, so that's the one that I chose. So it is there and ready for you guys to use. So you'll notice already the differences between these. So the blue form icon means that it's interactive. The red PDF icon means that it's not. So when I click it, right, I'm not going to have the opportunity to type into this document at all. Like there's no fields in it because it's a PDF. So I already showed you how you can DocuSign from that first documents page. You can actually DocuSign through the document here as well. So up at the top, you have document actions, this icon here, and you could rename it, which is helpful. And you can DocuSign it right here. So I'll click DocuSign. And that's going to stuff it in an envelope for me. Okay, so I'm not going to really go too far into this section because we've already talked at length about that. So I will just kind of breeze through this part. So the only thing that's different when it's a PDF is when you add recipients, you no longer have the option to do pre-tagged roles because the pre-tagged roles are only for the interactive fillable forms. So I'm going to use room participants, and that's going to pull up everybody that's already in the details section of my room. So I can choose Wendy and I can choose Marty. So I'll add those selected. Right? I could have chose email address, but then I'm typing information that DocuSign already has memorized for me. So that's just a little time saver. Right, and I'll change this. So then I'm going to press next to get to the next part. Okay. So I can do a lot here, a lot. And I'm going to show you guys kind of like where I feel are the most like pertinent information here. So I'm in yellow, which is for Marty, right? So I can add all of this in here. So maybe I'll add text, right? I can drag that over and I can type in, I think we've called it 123 Street. We're super creative, right? So if I type in some text and it's yellow, that means that it's for Marty. So when I click on that text, I can come over to the right-hand side and I can uncheck that as a required field for Marty. That way he's not typing it. I just want this information in there. So there's that. And then I can add in my seller names, which is Marty and Wendy Bird. I'm just clicking out of that. And then if I want, I can click it again, and these corner icons will let me stretch it out so that it fits in one line. And so I can make that not required. And I can make it read only, which would mean that he's not able to edit it, which is most likely what we're going to want to do in these cases. And then I can add their signatures here at the bottom. So signature, dragging and dropping. If I want to, I can click this and make it smaller so that it fits in there. And then it's important to remember to also drag over a date signed. It will automatically fill it in for you, but you do have to put the box in. And then at the top left, I would switch from Marty to Wendy, and I would drag over her signature. And I would drag over her date signed. And if I make a mistake, I can always click something and press delete on my keyboard and it'll disappear. Other options you have, here's the initial. You may need that. These guys here, they're text fields that are just a little bit more specific. So like, for example, up here where I typed Marty and Wendy Bird, if I instead wanted Wendy to fill in their names, I could drop that. And she would, when she opens it, it'll say full name and she'll know to type in her name. So I'm going to delete that though. So same thing with these, they're just kind of guided fields to let them know exactly what you want them to type. And then here's your text, check boxes, your radio buttons here. And then here's a note. You can add a note to your clients. And then the only thing that I feel like you guys would need that's not in this box or in this section is to be able to scratch things out. So if you go down to the pencil icon on the left to markup tools, that's where you'll find the line. So I can drag that in and I can use this guy to make it, you know, as long as I need it to be. So I know that there are times where you need to strike things out. So that's where that is. But from the videos that I've watched, people have said that that's really the only time you need to leave. Feel free to explore these options. I am attending a Docusign 201 class at the end of the month, and maybe I'll learn some fancy varsity level tricks to share with you guys. But for now, I think this is really all you would need. So standard fields and then just that pencil icon. So that's how you would like basically take a PDF and turn it into an interactive document. And then if you just wanted to check your work, remember you can use that recipient preview, but then whenever you're ready, you would just press send here at the top. So now I have my two envelopes, right? They're both waiting, right? Because I sent them to my personal emails, but they'll change to green check marks whenever they have been signed. So I'm just going to show you one more thing, which is in how to send multiple documents at once. So say you had loaded in the entire listing packet and you wanted your sellers to sign every single document, right? You can hover over the document and click the check mark in the top corner and then just keep clicking. And you can check off as many documents as you want and then press the Docusign pen button here to send them all in the same envelope. So you don't have to send like one document at a time. But again, I feel like that's where we get to the part where it's your own personal workflow. Whatever system you have, I feel like you can customize to your own preferences. So I am going to now move to the last part of the training, which is just how do you get your documents from Docusign to Command for compliance. So before I move out of here, if anyone has any questions, I'll give us like a minute to either type them or feel free to unmute yourself. But I'll take a breath to make sure I'm not missing anything. Funny because I am so used to teaching 7th graders that when I give people the chance to talk and I'm not immediately bombarded with memes and stuff, I get confused. So going back over to Command, I'm going to show you how to get your documents from Docusign to command. So going back, I am in my opportunity, right? But maybe I would have to toggle to here, but I'm open to it. So 2 different ways that you can, so I did the team disclosure and the agency disclosure, which are both under contract documents. So 2 ways that you can do this. You can go individually, so agency disclosure, and add a file here, and then scroll down. Where's the team disclosure? Weird. Oh, here it is. So then you could scroll down and add a file there, right? But I feel like when you have multiple documents, the best way to do is to attach multiple files here at the top. So I'm going to click that. And then you have your option here to go Docusign, right? And so since my Docusign is connected, that's how I can do that. So I would click Docusign. And then agency disclosure here, when I press this drop down, it's going to populate every single document I have in my Docusign. So we only had the 2, but this is where like maybe naming your documents in Docusign would be really important, because especially when you're uploading PDFs, if the PDF is titled just a bunch of random numbers, you know, you're going to get to this part and you're not going to know what's what. So renaming in that document actions part that I showed you is important, because that's how you would know what the document is when you get to the command side. So I would click agency disclosure, and then since the other one is actually in the listed part, I'll have to do that separately. It's different for the buy, or for this. I just got so mixed up. It's different when it's a buying opportunity. So I'll press attach. And you can see over here that it is loading, and now it's loaded. And I would do the same thing for my listed. And then whenever I was ready, I would submit it to the Market Center here, and then that's how we would see it. So this is a perfect question that I have in the chat, which is, how do you set up Docusign? So I'm going to pull up the Docusign study guide now, which is where you can find that information. So great question. So everybody has this document. I've sent it out through email. I've linked it in those daily emails that I'm sending out. But if someone doesn't have it, please reach out to me, frontdesk274@kw.com, and I will send it to you. But this study guide I have put together, and there's a whole section here about how you set up Docusign. So there is a video on how to create and connect your Docusign account. And there's also step-by-step instructions with like screenshots. And so, yes, this document is in Google Drive, but you would most likely find it better in your email. So if you look in your links to your virtual Market Center email, there is a link to the Docusign study guide in that email that goes out every day. Here's that information on confirming your time zone that I mentioned earlier. Super random, but some people's accounts aren't on the Eastern time zone. So you'll want to check that, especially if you start to notice. And then there's some overview instructions. And then what I think is even better is there's some videos that are broken up step by step. So sometimes, you know, you've forgotten one little part and you don't necessarily want to click through an hour-long video to find that one moment that I mentioned, how to add a signature. And so in that case, these are little 5-10 minute videos that are broken down step by step. And then at the very bottom, I have some random Docusign tips, and then the recordings of the Market Center classes. So when you want to look back at the recording, they're there. Also, I mean, this might be ironic because I'm sitting here teaching the class, but I personally learn better from like PDF instructions, like step by step with screenshots that I can kind of, flip through as I'm working. So these two PDFs here are so good. Like they both have Market Center specific instructions in them, because we've edited them. And so those are really good too. And so once your DocuSign account is created, then there really isn't like a syncing to command part, because once it's been connected to command, then it's always connected. And when we started the class and in our opportunity, we press start transaction and we press DocuSign, that creates that DocuSign room. So, and again, if anyone needs like a one-on-one or like any questions, let me know. But that is pretty much all I have for you guys today. I'm happy to stick around and answer any other questions that you guys have. But other than that, that's all I got. So thank you everybody who attended, and I appreciate your time.
Hey Kayla, how does the class differ from the DocuSign 101 tomorrow?
It's not going to differ much unless Scott Leroy has learned some big things in the last month. The only difference would be that there's going to be a lot of times during that class for Scott Leroy, because it is a national class, that they say things like, I don't know how your market center does it, or this will look different for each market center. And in those parts, you might not be able to follow along as well. But if you have connected your DocuSign account already, and you've seen this and seen how our market center gets to our forms, then you would be able to skip through that part. So long story short, I don't know how it would differ. I'm planning on watching as well to see if there's any new information, but I structured my class off of that one. So
what about your next, is this class recorded, or is there another one coming up soon?
This is recorded, and it'll be linked in our Facebook group and YouTube channel and all of that stuff. And then our next one is on Friday at 2 p.m.
Friday. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for a great class. I feel like I'm excited. I think I'm going to like it more than .loop.
Oh, yay. Glad to hear it. Anyone else?
I have a personal one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I had signed on and I had sat in the classes this fall. And so you guys had said that if we had logged on with our old email address, it may be a problem. But I've gone on to DocuSign and Command, and it all seems to be working. What's the trick to make sure? I guess maybe probably just start the whole process.
Yeah, I would maybe do a test opportunity with like your own personal email and just make sure that everything sends. But you should be good. The issue is coming from people who had their own DocuSign account before the Market Center had one.
Okay.
So there were a couple people that like had an account with a previous brokerage or just used it for their own personal use. And then when we created our account, they weren't able to link up. But if you're able to see our Keller Williams forms, then you're good to go. You're like with us.
Thank you.
Great question. All right. Well, I think that might be it. Thanks for everyone for coming, and I will hopefully see you soon in the Market Center, hopefully. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, Kayla.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thanks, Kayla.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Good to see you.
Thanks.